building love and reverence for reading in the hearts of Indian readers, one book at a time. My next guest on Duologues is on the quest to make India the largest book market of the world. His passion for the written word has paved the path to building some of the biggest publishing houses in the country. Please join me as I welcome Anantha Padmanabhan, CEO of HarperCollins India, to this episode of Duologues. Anand, thank you very much for agreeing to do Duologues with me today. And the backdrop is fascinating, something which I'm not very familiar with. I'm not an avid reader. I do just about 10-15 books in a year. So this conversation is going to be potentially inspiring for me also to pick up the art of reading more than what I do. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And I think for you to summarize this conversation about a conversation on reading is just incredible.
Absolutely.
And you are a good reader already if you're reading more than one book a month.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All of us have different reading capabilities or interest levels. So you're a good reader already, don't?
Thank you. And Anant, we'll get into reading and topics around reading and what it takes to make a book, find the interest of people at large and stuff like that. Before we do that, let us understand about HarperCollins, the company which you represent in the country. Give us a sense of the background of HarperCollins and when did it come to India, and how does the current framework of this institution look like in the country, and what are the objectives which you are looking forward to?
Excellent. So HarperCollins was founded in 1817. So we're now 202, 203 years old, or close to 25. So, and we've been publishing books in 18 countries, 17 languages for over 200 years.
Wow.
So it's a very long historical legacy. You can imagine through wars, through famine, and through most recently a situation like pandemic where we've always been publishing books.
Absolutely.
It started in India. It's now our 31st year. We came in India as a partnership. And then in 2012, we became a wholly owned company of HarperCollins.
In 2021?
2012.
Okay.
2012. Became a wholly owned company. We are a traditional multi-language, multi-genre, multi-age publisher, predominantly in the English and Hindi language. But we publish and we work with other publishers as well to take the books into other languages. We publish for all age groups. We have two divisions in India. We do what is called trade publishing, a lot of the books that you see here.
Right.
And we have an education publishing division as well, which is now in its 11th year, where we publish textbooks for kindergarten to class 8.
Right.
As a multinational publisher, we bring books from HarperCollins UK and the US and various other publishers as well to India. The publishing program itself, as one of the most awarded Indian publishers, I mean, we have 7 Publisher of the Year awards, which is the highest for any publisher. Our authors have won the Nobel, the Booker, the Gyanpith Award, the Sahitya Academy Award, you name it. So typically, we tend to get a lot of awards, and all the credit goes to the editorial team that I have the privilege of working with. We publish about 225 new books every year. We have an active catalog of up to 3,000 titles. We publish across formats, print, electronic, and audio. And we do licensing where just digital gets published around the world. On the education front, it's kindergarten to class 8, like I said. We publish all the major subjects. We publish in print. We also do a blended learning program for children.
Right.
In that sense. The larger mission, if we can use the word mission, is just one. Especially with India as a context, right? Almost 1.5 billion people.
Yeah.
20% of them in schools at any given time. The world's largest middle class in that sense. The largest population in the ages of 15 to 25.
Right.
The largest aging population over 60.
Sure.
So you think about the need for a book, the need for reading, the need for expanding your mind, knowledge, education. We have people. And fortunately, we have a lot more people in the world who speak English as a first language.
Absolutely.
Or use English as a first language for business purposes than any other part of the world.
Right.
So the idea is quite simply selling more books to more people every day.
Right.
And it's not just a commercial interest. Especially in a country like India, with the diversity of language, the demographic, economic capability, access to a school, access to a bookshop, access to entertainment, with the advantage of being digitally connected.
Right.
I personally believe it's also a responsibility
Absolutely, it is.
that we have to educate more children.
Yeah.
We have to make them, their literacy and numeracy levels to be capable. I won't even say that they have to be job ready. They have to become good
Yeah,
human
more
beings.
qualitative actually.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
ability to analyze, the ability to communicate, the ability to be empathetic. Then they will choose for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Job creation is a completely different ballgame, etc.
Right.
But that's the idea that we
Right.
are here, we publish really good books, we'd like to entertain, educate, inform as many as Indians as possible.
Wonderful.
In the trade publishing division, I think about 75 million people buy books, which is a very small number compared to
Yeah.
what is
Yeah,
possible.
but again, a large number.
Exactly. So
Comparative to global population in any country, this would still be a
exactly.
very large number.
Books are a child in a pram is given a book to hold.
Right.
We don't have that advantage
Yeah,
yet.
it might
Maybe
be a
we do
digital
it
device these days.
exactly, which is hugely distracting and not a good thing and a bad thing. But we don't
Engaging.
do
I
that yet.
think the parents these days feel it's engaging.
It's just stay out of my hair, by the
Right.
way. I don't know about engaging. कुछ ना कुछ करते रहो, just don't bother me. That is the strat.
Right.
But I think here we have an opportunity to get, you said, like I said, 300 million kids in schools. Most
Right.
kids have two parents. So that's 600 million adults who want very good education for the child. Why aren't 600 million people buying books? At least half of them should be buying books.
Right. Yeah.
My aim is to say
Wonderful.
25% of India should be a regular book buying
Amazing.
culture and population.
Right.
But we are also a reluctant reading community.
Yeah, true.
We don't take to books naturally. We are the brightest in school and college.
Right.
But for some reason, the moment you get out of a school environment, you don't think about, you think that this is a very daunting space.
True.
But they read very long textbooks, they solve complicated calculus
Yeah.
problems. They don't shift to entertainment
Right.
or they don't shift to need based, fact based reading.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we're trying to do in our read campaign.
Right.
Is to say, can we get more people to buy more books and read them, educate more children in as many languages as possible,
Right.
and then just be a better society.
Wonderful, wonderful. But as an organization, like it's very fundamental to imagine, like in my case, I've worked for electronic companies.
Yeah.
And the capability of an organization, whether it comes to structure or the processes, is essentially the capability to innovate, carry out R&D and D and production, and then distribution, and then after sales service.
Yeah.
How does this look like for publishing industry?
Publishing at the heart starts with our ability to publish a good writer. So it starts with a blank sheet of paper.
Right.
In that sense,
Right.
our business is nothing without our authors who write their books. But from how we look at, let's say we look at next
And
year.
there would be a pool of authors who are consistently engaged with you, or
Yes, yes.
people can walk in and propose their work to you. How does that part
Combination
happen?
of all of them.
Okay.
There are published writers who would send us a work to saying, I've written this book.
Right.
And then depending on the structure of a publishing company is editorial, sales, marketing, and then what we call operations.
Sure.
Design, production, all of that will go into
Right.
that. Warehousing, all of that's just the
Right.
When we think about what we want to publish next year, let me start there.
Yeah.
We have writers who will regularly write books, who are writers, who will submit either a work of fiction or a non-fiction. We have ideas that we think the world should be reading. So we commission those books. And we're also looking for new ideas all the time of what you might be interested in.
What's the future of bookstores? In our industry also, a lot of shopping is starting to move towards omni-channel experience, so to say. So people would research online and then they may come back to have a touch and feel experience in the offline space and then eventually make a purchasing decision in either of these locations. So some of the reflections on this.
You asked a question about book retail. I think why, especially in books, book retail works is you don't know what your next read is. You might order something online when you know what you want.
Right.
I know you had said Om Swami was part of your dialogue
of
series,
course.
right? We publish Om Swami.
Yeah.
So you can go look up Om Swami and see what his books are. I have 3, I need to buy the other 2. Very easily done. But what do you want to read next?
Right.
We spoke when you came in earlier about your idea to explore.
Right.
So if you wanted to go see ice melting impact in the Antarctica, and it's happening, and its impact on wildlife and so on, you might have a starting point.
Absolutely.
So if you walk into a bookstore, you might pick up a National Geographic,
Right.
and then that might lead you to discover other books on the same subject.
Right.
And the crucial role of she or he at the bookstore who's hand selling, what would you like to read next, Manish? Let's say
Right.
you are a business book reader,
Yeah.
and they remember that you bought
Yeah.
Execution, let's say.
Right.
And then they're going to come and tell you, we have one more that you might like in the
Got it.
series. That's not something the online world digitally can actually solve.
Yeah.
And
So
there are
qualitative recommendations can happen. A
various reasons. You
follow-up
might
of
buy a
your.
book because you like
Right.
the cover.
Yeah.
You might buy a book because the display was great. You might
Right.
buy it out of curiosity to say, why are so many copies piled up?
Right.
Your child might want a picture book, and on the way you think, okay, this is something even I don't know enough about. So the idea of discovering something completely new, which humans love,
Right.
the idea of something to surprise you, again, which humans love, there is no, and you're also talking to the wrong audience in that sense, there is no more a joyful space for me than being in a
a
bookshop.
bookstore. Yeah, I know. I know. I'll come back to that.
Because I don't
Yeah.
even go looking for hours to say, is our book available enough? I only look for things that I have not seen
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you mentioned the cover of a book. I mean, it's cliched for me to say, but does the cover matter?
Yeah, no, absolutely
It
matter.
does.
Whoever tells you never judge a book by its cover should be safely ignored.
Right.
It's the first thing that strikes you when you see a book.
Right. I would be interested in moving on to what genres are like on the rise in our country and those kind of things. But my last question on this particular perspective is you spoke about the fact that we import paper. And the other perspective in printing would be ink also.
Oh, yes.
And I'm interested to know because in our industry, ESG and sustainability are becoming more important. In fact, they are very central to the future strategies.
Yes.
What's your view on this one? Because this industry consumes a lot of paper, which essentially, in some sense, creates an impact on the environment. So, how do you look at the perspective of
So
being
we
a
have
carbon neutral company in the time to come?
we have quite, I mean, I wouldn't use the word stringent, but we have very conscious sustainability goals. Most large publishers use paper that only comes from renewable forests.
All right.
There is a certification.
Right.
So that is one part of it. Lots of publishers have also started to transition to reused paper,
Right.
recyclable paper. Now it does not offer the same printing quality,
Right.
but it is sustainable. So that's something that we were conscious of.
Right.
We print as close to the market as possible, so we are not shipping large volumes from
Right.
abroad. Therefore, trying to keep our carbon footprint low. I know that our offices in the UK and the US are nearing carbon neutral, whether it's running the warehouse, whether it's using different forms of energy
renewable
to
energy
ensure that
sources.
the entire value chain is very conscious of the amount of power we consume when we do that. Now, paper is an age-old technology.
Right.
It's going to stay.
One of the oldest.
And
Yeah.
it has survived internet, it has survived mobiles, it will survive AI,
100%.
and the joy of holding something and reading from it is not going to go. That's not to say you're not going to buy an ebook.
Yeah.
That's not to say you're not listening to an audiobook.
Right.
But you don't have to charge the book.
Right.
It will give you the same joy every time you read it.
Right. And books are more immersive. Would
They
you
are
agree?
immersive. They are a slower form of entertainment.
Right.
It's
No,
individual.
comparative to a digital device, can we say that when you read, would that be the case?
It's the same.
It's the same.
Because the imagination is whether you read a paragraph, whether you read a paragraph, and I like to say this: if you're reading a paragraph about a 16-year-old girl who's a serial killer in Gurgaon who just knocks off 75-year-old people all the time until they catch her,
Right.
it doesn't matter
Yeah, it
whether
doesn't
you
matter you're reading on a paper or a digital device, right?
you can imagine, right?
You're getting immersed into that.
Yes. And print offers a certain, from the immersive point of view, it's just me sitting with that story,
Sure.
being on the street with her.
Right.
Right?
Right.
When you have a digital extension, there are enhanced ebooks where we can take you away from there, as it were. You can also find meanings and stuff like that. In the audio experience, it can be a dramatized audio book. So you're also listening and being on the street with the noises and the sounds and the smells. So reading by itself is largely immersive. The distinction between other form of entertainment and reading, especially from my point of view, is you and I can watch Tom Cruise together and have fun, clink glasses and so on. But when I'm reading, only I'm reading. And what he does, or the consequence of the conversation he has, this is an example.
Sure.
He's a great man.
Yeah.
Is that you might interpret it differently, I might interpret it differently.
Yes.
Books talk to individuals completely different.
Correct.
And it's a much, much slower form of
Right.
spending time. So your own 15 books, that's one a month.
Right.
Now I might be reading 3.
I know.
because we have different reading paces, right?
Right.
So individualistic, invaluable, I think, and I think nothing replaces the sense of what you get off a book.
Completely agree. Yes, that is true.
And for children, it's even more. It just blows their mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I today they get digital. When I grew up, we had to only go to a bookstore.
Yeah.
Then I met Tintin long before, right? Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Go to Nepal with Tintin.
I know.
I didn't know the Abominable Snowman existed.
Right.
So those things are just what only books and comics and imagination can give.
Right. So again, two follow-up questions like what are the genres which are like evolving in our country with so much of abundance of rich heritage and the legacy of a lot of things, including the understanding of yoga and Ayurveda, the spirituality, philosophy. So which are the genres which are more specifically catching up in our country?
So we broadly look at three main categories within adult fiction and non-fiction, and the children's category until about age 14.
Sure.
Non-fiction continues to be the biggest, and within non-fiction, you will see, especially in the last few years, the rise of self-help reading. If you take a look at bestseller charts and all the gurus and all the self-help experts we read, we think one would assume that we are the most peaceful, the greatest of human beings to walk on earth. We are not. There's a big gap. I have a personal theory. I think we should start teaching children compassion in school.
More beyond the moral science which we
Exactly. Reduce some of the calculus and teach them compassion in the beginning. Where suddenly, when you become an adult, you don't want to find a new habit or change your life or start thinking like a monk and all of these.
Are you seeing curriculum moving towards that, like more value systems?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. EQ, too much influence or instance of IQ. EQ has already started to come in, and it's not just about. I think parents know that the child has to be more empathetic and have a higher EQ.
Right.
It's how do you impart that knowledge? We have a new series of books coming up. In fact,
Okay.
if I may plug, it's called Well-being.
Okay.
It's just going out. It's for classes 1
Aimed
to
at children.
aimed at children.
Okay.
The idea of mental well-being
Wonderful.
as a
That's the need of the hour.
structured education product.
Appreciate
We'll be training teachers. The books will be available for parents as well.
Wonderful.
How do you talk to a child about death? How do you talk to a child about loss? Even simple things like today, if you get up and you move to Singapore, your son or daughter is going to miss all their friends here. How do you explain that he or she has an opportunity to make new friends?
Right.
How do you break the norm from being, oh, I'm a shy child and so on? So there are a lot of concepts that we need books as a help to teach children with.
Wonderful.
So it is so important in that sense.
Yeah. So, and again, talking about demographics.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure you would pick up the global benchmarks which are already available within your organization.
Yes.
Are they different comparative to, say, the West? The readers, the demography of the readers, etc. Of course, the genre itself seems to be slightly different from the rest of the world. But is the demography also different? Are more young readers elsewhere are reading more books? May not necessarily be the case
It is
in our
cultural.
country.
There's a large cultural influence. So if you go east to west, you take manga comics.
Right.
You take the subjects that younger children abroad are exposed to, not so much here, and the change in international adult publishing as well.
Right.
Societies are getting hyper nationalistic,
Right.
as it were.
Yeah.
So you will see that determined, which happens here too. But Indians are definitely reading a lot more fiction.
Right.
There was always a belief that we're not reading enough fiction. We've just come off a big market report comparing 2023 reading habits to 2022. Fiction reading grew 20%, which is a very big number. The market in India typically grows between 8 and 12.
Okay.
But we've been consistently growing after that, the pandemic period. So we're quite much larger. The Indian publishing market is much larger than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
Fiction is read a lot. Crime is read a lot. Romance is read a lot. The trend is now called romantasy, fantasy and romance mixing with each other. One of the tipping points were what is called book talk. We don't have TikTok in India, but a lot of what we see as reels, book reels have been a highly influential period.
Book reels may mean what?
Book reels is influencers saying, I love this book, why you should read this book. Like a TikTok video.
Okay.
But we make book reels. They make book reels abroad. So that has been a big tipping point.
Okay. So are they like rapid fire book reviews? Something like that?
Book reviews, fan reels, fan videos, author interviews.
Wonderful.
Major tipping point from that point of view.
Right.
In non-fiction, we're seeing a lot of self-help. We're seeing a lot of politics. We are seeing a lot of religion being read. Current affairs, business. and not so much science, which is I think it's a reflection of the books that are published as well. Biographies and live stories are a very big subject. Uh, and these
Wonderful.
are what Indians are reading.
Yeah.
And children are mostly reading narrative.
I see a lot of books here, and I'm sure you would be keeping a track of, uh, at a very macro level, what is the percentage of foreign authors which are being read in our country, and say vice versa also. Are Indian authors finding their place more than what it used to be in the past globally?
Yes.
And which would be those subjects or genres or
Mostly fiction. So in India, tradition in any case, the number of Indian writers who publish, we publish, all publishers put together coming
right,
out of India as
right,
a quantum clearly is a lot less than American or
right,
British writers, right? So in a very good bookstore, 70% of the books that you see would be books published abroad.
okay,
So that shift will continue to be because more books are published abroad
right,
and more books come in. Indian writers from the time Arundhati Roy won the Booker Prize to Vikram Seth to Arvind Adiga, then Kiran Desai, the Booker Prize winning and shortlisting have exposed Indian writers and international audiences to Indian writers for a very long time. As a country of interest, India is always fascinating for
yeah,
people.
true,
Indian fiction travels more than Indian non-fiction unless it's some amount of controversy attached or if it's a biography
right,
of Indira Gandhi or
yeah,
something like that. But Western audiences do read a lot of Indian
right.
books. That's always the effort for us is to find the right home. By right home, I mean right publishing home or the right editor to take. So a lot of our books regularly get published abroad.
Yeah, so that encourages. Thank you very much. And yeah, so what's happening in the policy environment? You are active into
Yeah,
into chambers. You are
yeah, touchy
co-chair
subject.
with the publishing committee at FICCI as well.
Yes.
What's happening in the policy environment and some of the reflections on, say, copyright protections
Yeah.
and those kind of things?
There are three parts to being part of some kind of a body to ensure that India as a country can be different
Right.
for the world of publishing, right? One, do we have all the right policies to encourage more publishing
Right.
and therefore more sales? And that includes fighting piracy.
Right.
That includes the recognition of piracy at the demonstrative level. That includes do we have the right tax environment for encouraging more publishing to happen? To
So
make
books on sale would invite what kind of a tax today?
so good question. There's no GST.
No GST.
So you don't, what we put on the price is what it is. You don't
Okay.
pay anything more as a
Okay.
GST.
Okay.
But on the origination side, publishers lose 18%,
Okay.
which we are not able to pass on to the consumer.
Got it.
What that then means is it impacts our ability to invest. It takes the price up as a consequence.
Right.
So we're talking about that's the policy part.
Right.
The availability of paper, the availability of transparency, publishers in the trade front, maybe even in education actually, I think at the very least lose 30% of value to piracy.
Right.
It shouldn't happen. Tomorrow you and I can become a book publisher. You can take any book here, print it in Rohtak and sell 3,000 copies and nobody will find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one part. Second part is how can we grow more readership? And that is simply where does a child first encounter a book? Think about a non-metro. And even in a metro, if you don't go into a mall and if you go into a mall that does not have a bookshop, you will bump into mobile phone advertising, entertainment advertising, you will buy the best fashion clothes. Today you can walk into a mall and buy a brinjal or a BMW,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? Or a Balenciaga.
Yeah.
But you will not bump into a book as often.
Yeah.
So it's not in your public imagination. You have to go to a bookstore. So therefore, you're already ghettoing the reader and the non-reader. You go into any international mall, main street, high street, there will always be a bookshop. The fact that we have to make books part of our culture.
Right.
And now, not everybody might invest in a high street retail because it's a business that's going to has its own economics, as it were. So as you and when we were growing up, I grew up in Madras, Chennai now, and I would go to the British Council Library
Right.
or the USIS library. We don't have enough libraries. So and not everybody in India can afford a book. So it's not fair to expect everybody to buy a book either.
Yeah.
By the theory, we can sell books to 1 billion people.
Right.
So from that framework perspective, every district should have a library.
Okay.
And also representing our industry as an overall. It's not just entertainment publishing,
Right.
education publishing, journal publishing. So the idea of being fortunate to be part of FICCI and other bodies is to have these conversations regularly,
Wonderful.
create a collective group of all publishers together. Also talk about beyond publishing,
Right.
books to screen. So the more you see, if you take Oscars annually, 70% of Oscars over time have been inspired by a book or a story.
Right.
We need to make that happen here.
Right.
Anuja Chauhan's Club You to Death, which is a fiction we published 3 years ago. Her new book is called Fast and
Okay.
Dead, is now Murder Mubarak, which is launching sometime now. So a lot of that will happen. We will see a lot of that happening. So you make book an active part.
Right.
I mean, we say we have a World Book Day,
Yeah.
but if you take a look at what J.K. Rowling and a few others did in the UK, is on that particular day for charity, they all created a book for £1
Right.
because the environment let them do it. The government buys copies. Take Singapore.
And then you democratize a particular industry and a product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the government walks the talk. They're saying, okay, I'm going, even if they're saying, I hate the word committee, but even if they're saying we're going to select books for libraries and selected books will be bought for 10,000 libraries across the country, that's an encouragement to the publishing houses, encouragement to authors.
Yeah.
Like musicians, authors' livelihoods are entirely dependent on the royalty they earn from books.
True.
So we really have to create a very large environment.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying there should be as many bookstores as mobile
No,
stores.
sincerely appreciated. Yeah, that's a wonderful effort you're making.
I think everywhere there's a cafe or a coffee shop,
Right.
there has to be a bookstore nearby, right?
Absolutely.
Same demographic, same interest level, same spending capability.
Right.
And online is doing a fantastic job. Now you can order a book as we are speaking. I can make 5 book recommendations, and maybe by the time you get home, it's already delivered. That's also a possibility.
Right.
So they are bridging a big gap in a country like ours.
Yeah.
But these are stuff that I'm usually obsessed with. I think we can become the world's largest book buying community,
Right.
even if not by dollar or pound value, by sheer volume.
Wonderful.
And I think that's one of those things I keep telling as many people who are willing to
Yeah,
visit.
that's one of your mission also, I understand. Yeah, that was insightful, and more power to you and also to everyone at HarperCollins, and moving the conversation to the personal reflection and aspects of your life. I know that you started off some part of your professional career in a bookstore.
Yes.
So we'll come to that later, but in the first instance, what got the books to you in the first instance? Like, how was your childhood like, and how did you find interest in the books in the first instance?
My dad a banker, mom was a homemaker. Our pocket money was only allowed to be spent on books.
Right.
My dad was a reader.
Interesting.
So my first Robert Ludlow,
That should inspire a lot of
Colin
parents.
Forbes I read because my dad was a reader.
Right.
We used to be taken to a lending library. We had to borrow 5 books and finish it. And an outing in those days, if you go to eat a Chinese meal, one of those times it will be to go to a large bookshop. So the Higginbotham's in Madras, which actually is one of the oldest bookstores in the world,
Right.
it's now 108 years old, I think. So we always grew up with books in that sense. Either my dad was reading or we were.
Right.
And then I had the opportunity or need to go to work in a bookshop, and I just finished my 12th standard.
Are there books or authors or some of their work which really came handy, which could inspire you in your life, or which could come handy in a situation which was really tough for you to handle? Any anecdotes or examples or experiences coming in your mind?
When I moved from being a senior vice president, head of revenue in a publishing house to become a chief executive here, the thing that I told myself, this is day zero. It doesn't matter what I've learned in my last 25 years. Day zero of a chief executive is completely different.
Correct.
Because you're managing across the floor.
Right.
You're managing different experiences. Mostly you're managing people who know their jobs a lot better than you do.
Yeah.
I don't know what production is.
Yes.
I don't know how to edit a book.
Right.
But you just want to be able to create an environment for them so they can be the best. So one book that really made a difference in the business reading is Rob Coffey, I think, Why Should Anyone Be Led By You? It's a Harvard Business Press book.
Right.
It's a very simple question. And it teaches you authenticity, integrity, job knowledge, and so on. But it's a book that I often revisit. It's not a one-time read. Right. As your challenges change, as your own ability changes, that book speaks to you in a different way.
Wonderful. I'll pick it up.
Yeah, you should see it.
Yeah. You mentioned with candor that it might not be lonely on the top. I mean, many people would not believe that. So how do you maintain equanimity? Like, Wife's life,
I sit in
especially.
an
Yeah.
open plan.
Okay.
One of the first things that everybody asked me when we created this open plan office is, do you have a space for yourself?
Right.
So I said, we should have a space for myself if we're having a conversation that is
Right.
confidential.
Right.
But I sit on an open floor with people. I think the first thing that I've always believed in is access. It's often misunderstood that the head of the organization has access to anybody in the company. The opposite should be
Should be
true.
true. Yes.
Because if somebody walks up to you, say, do you have a minute? They've come to you more often than not with the problem that they'd like your advice on.
True.
If they had to fix an appointment, worry if their boss would worry if you're going to his boss's boss.
Right.
Because the problem and the purpose should always supersede the need for that meeting.
Right.
And they're recognizing that as somebody who has a little more experience than the others, that you might have a solution to the problem. Does your designation allow that access?
Right.
It's not lonely at all.
Right. Yeah.
Lonely man is because you can't talk about everything to everybody.
Yeah, sure.
But
That's a
information
different
is knowledge
perspective.
and
Yeah.
information is power at every level.
Absolutely. Yes.
They might not have lunch with you,
Right.
maybe because you're a prick. But but I think we should build an organization where everybody understands that the larger purpose is different from.
Right.
We shouldn't build walls around ourselves. We shouldn't build hierarchies around ourselves, processes around ourselves. The balance between the right process and the right personality or the humanness of a business is very key for the success of any business.
Yeah, Anant, it's reasonably clear getting into this conversation and having this conversation with you that you are keeping a very complex situation to be handled in a very simple manner. How does your typical day look like your day, and or a week look like? Like, how does your weekends look like, and what do you do over weekends?
Okay,
How do you maintain this balance in your life?
I'll start with whether it's a weekday or a weekend. When I go home and my 6-year-old retriever brings his toy,
Now that's joy.
he doesn't care where I've been.
That's a switch, actually. You
Yeah,
completely.
whether I've earned my keep for today, whether I whiled away a time or made a very important business decision, he doesn't care.
Right, right.
He's like, this guy is back and let's play. He's waited all day for that.
Right.
And like you said, so that reminds you what's important in life. And this is work. I have a great bridge of my work being my entertainment and my break. I can read.
Wonderful.
And then I think dogs teach you more than anything, and any
Yeah,
human
true,
being
true.
can ever teach you, by the way. But on typical work day, of course, we have business demands. We have monthly, quarterly, annual deliverables. And it does not include just sales or revenue or profit. You need to hold on to your talent. You need to attract the right talent. Constantly aware that you're publishing somebody else's books. So it's choosing, for me, the right kind of meetings.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of too many meetings or long meetings.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of long emails as long as the data is clear.
Right.
If we all are talking about the right things at the right time, I'd like let people be and not get in their way. But review often. I think one of the things that I learned very early from one of my bosses is that no challenge is criticism.
True. Should not be.
That's all.
Yeah.
If somebody says why, he's not saying why.
Yeah.
He's saying why. Can you explain why this
Yeah.
happens?
One is wanting to precipitate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also true that in our own jobs, that we might lose purpose or focus because you're just too busy and distracted. So it might be good for at regular intervals to pull back and see it from afar.
Yeah. Right.
So my boss does it for me. Because when I think about what am I going to tell him every 15 days about what's happening in India, it helps me focus on what's the most important from if two chief executives are talking to each other, what are the material changes we need to talk about?
Right.
So similarly, at every level of the organization, we need to identify what are the most critical material changes towards our business goal that can be changed. Is it a setback? Is it an advantage? Is there an opportunity? Is there a change? Is there a people change or a process change?
Right.
And so on. So that would be my work week.
Wonderful.
And running both trade and education, which are completely different beasts in themselves,
Yes.
means that I have enough, like a rum and coke.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That is fun.
And this brings me to the last part of my conversation with you. And while I heard one of your purposes to enable an environment which makes India one of the biggest or the biggest
Hope.
books market in the world. I understand that. Uh, this is the question which I ask all my guests. What is that higher purpose which, say, wakes you up every morning to do what you do?
I know I say this often, is that I know that, my family might not like me saying this, but I know that as I step out of this building, I might come out under a bus.
Got it.
Correct? So as long as every moment you're mindful and you're giving every moment, I try. You're all distracted with phone. As long as I'm able to give every moment the moment it requires, the time it requires, I'm fine. And if I don't have a dog on the bed, then it's not a good day. So our kids tend to sleep with us. Um,
Amazing.
that's all.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That if you give the moment what it requires,
Yeah.
whether you're in a boardroom, whether in your bath, whether you're driving, or whether you're just doing nothing and reading or sitting under a tree, just give it that
Fantastic.
moment,
Yeah.
and that's all I think.
Wonderful,
I try.
wonderful.
I try.
That is wonderful. Anant, I I found this conversation personally engaging. It was almost, I mean, it appears that you are a book in yourself. And I read this book like a sprint in last 40, 45, 50 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
No,
And
no. Thank you for talking to
I
me.
found it very resonating also at a personal level. So it's very inspiring for me personally. And I'm sure this would be insightful and inspirational for a lot of people. I wish you all the best, both
Thank you.
the team HarperCollins and you all the best for your endeavors and your purpose. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for having this conversation.
No, thank you for having a
Wonderful
conversation
chatting
with
with
me.
you.